Welcome to the Action Network podcast UFC betting preview presented by DraftKings. I'm your host, filling in for Sean Zerillo, Billy Ward, and today I'm joined by special guest John Lanfranca, who's filling in for me. We're taking a look at the entire stacked UFC 322 card. We've got two title fights, including both fights with someone attempting to become a double champion. As always, we'll go through and give you our best bets, favorite underdogs, top props, and more. If you'd like to tail some of the bets we discussed today, make sure to find the quick slip links in the podcast and video description or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. As we always do, we will be starting with the main event. This one we have Islam Makhachev coming up to 170 pounds to attempt to become a double champion as he takes on new champion Jack Della Maddalena. This is normally the spot where Sean would give you the long breakdown because he is the one who writes the main event preview. I am actually in charge of the main event preview this week. I have not gotten to that one yet. John, it seems like you had a little bit stronger thoughts on this one than I did at this moment. My full preview will include my final bet. Why don't you tell me what you're seeing and betting on this one, then I'll jump in with my early thoughts.
Yeah, so as you know, I'm a big Jack Della Maddalena fan. It was about 2 years ago at this point. I said he would eventually be the welterweight champ after all the dust settled, and I stuck to that in the Bilal fight when he captured the title, and I'm sticking to that now. And I was actually surprised to see him being lined as a 2-1 underdog now. Like the best line out there is plus 230. And I think I kind of see this fight playing out differently than most people because if you like Islam Makhachev to win this, I think early submission is the way to go because he's going to get those takedowns, and it's probably going to be easier early in the fight. And I will say, just like on a tangent, this is like the most interesting title fight of the year, in my opinion, because there's so many angles to think about. Like Jack Della's strength of schedule was so poor up to him really winning the title. Like his wins, while he looked impressive, you're like, well, Gilbert Burns is washed, or there was all the competitions he's winning splits over guys he should barely beat. But then you look at the Makachev side, and it's like, well, he almost lost to a 145 pounder, and wait, he almost, Dustin Poirier took him into deep waters and was a very close fight down the stretch, and now he's moving up in weight. So I just think there's a lot of different angles here. But my personal opinion is Jack Della, if you believe Bilal Muhammad didn't just come in looking to strike in that match, which I don't. I think Muhammad was having trouble tracking him down, having trouble taking him down. Yes, he eventually got some, and I think Makhachev will get some here and get him on the mat. And maybe Jack Della does leave his neck out, and Darce choke. I've seen specific prop is like plus 550, so that's out there. I think it's possible in the early rounds. But I think the longer this fight goes, Jack Della is going to beat him up, and we're going to see if Makhachev gets tired. So not only am I playing the money line here on JDM, but I'm playing a sprinkle on round four at plus 2,500 and round five plus 3,500 on DraftKings. I believe that's the best round five line because I think the longer this fight goes, that's bad news for Makhachev, even though we've never seen his cardio fail him. But I think JDM has incredible cardio. And the longer they're standing in front of each other, I think Islam can get beat up. I think JDM could drop him in later rounds, and if that extra weight makes him a little more tired, I could see JDM even getting a late round finish. So I'm on the JDM money line, and I'm on those late round props, and hopefully he is my current favorite UFC fighter. So I don't want to. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I do think he is the value side in this fight.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. My initial read was also the JDM money line side was probably where I was going to land. What I have in our sheet and what I think I'll probably end up going with though is Della Maddalena by knockout at some point at plus 450. I actually really like your take of it's probably likelier to be later than not. I might consider a same game parlay at DraftKings, over 1.5, over 2.5 rounds. Just try to catch all of that late upside for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. If there is a weakness to Makhachev, it's his chin. His only loss, he was knocked out in. He was knocked down by Alexander Volkanovski. Madalena is two weight classes bigger than Volkanovski and trains with a lot of the same people. If Volkanovski can drop you, Madalena can probably finish you. So I think there's that angle to it. And the other, Bilal Muhammad was a stylistically similar fight. Makhachev isn't as good as Muhammad, but to your point, it wasn't like Bilal wanted to have a boxing match, but he couldn't corral him and get in range to shoot for takedowns. We were talking about this on the Discord a little bit earlier this week, but preventing takedown attempts is a skill in MMA. Moving your feet, keeping that range, using uppercuts, knees, whatever to deter takedowns is just as much a skill as defending the takedowns that do come. And I think that's where Maddalena really stands out is his ability to do that and limit the takedowns. It's going to be harder against Islam because Islam is way more comfortable shooting from long range than fighters like Bilal or even Habib, who like to get into the clinch. That's the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause and why I want to watch some tape and see, where most of his takedowns have came from, especially when he's fighting in his own weight class, as rare as that seemingly has been for him as a lightweight champ, rather than fighting short notice Moicano or Volkanovski twice. So that's what I'm looking for before I make the bet. But as it stands now, I'm 100% with you. And I think I'm probably just taking the knockout prop instead of trying to get too cute because you are going to be gutted if there's a knockout at 4 minutes and 50 seconds in the third round. So,
Yeah,
I always kick myself when those situations happen.
yeah, and I will just add a couple. Like I'm playing JDM money line for a full unit,
Right.
and it's much less on the props. So I'll be happy if he wins either way. But
Yeah.
one of the things I was so high on Jack Della even years ago was like the way his footwork progression
Hmm.
and just how like fluid he was. It was like guys, like he wasn't in the spot guys were thinking he was going to be when they
Yes.
try to take him down. And yeah, sometimes they did, but I was like, this guy on the feet is going to be beating people up consistently, and he's obviously getting better. You could say that about a lot of guys, but I mean, this I felt like he was reaching an elite level of just like all the technical aspects
Hmm.
when it comes to footwork, and he's gonna give him problems. I do think he'll hit the mat, but he's a good scrambler, and as long as he doesn't leave his neck out, which I've heard he's training with Craig Jones, he's training
Yes.
with Volk, all this stuff. So like you would think he's prepared himself for some of Makhachev's favorite submissions. So I just think the value is too good here. I think that the line should maybe Islam should be a slight favorite, but like in the
Mhm.
minus 135 range or something like that, as opposed to where he is right now.
Glad you mentioned the Craig Jones. Anyone who follows Craig Jones on YouTube, just a ton of tremendous content this week, just trolling Russian fighters and the UFC in general. So classic Craig Jones stuff. Gotta love that. Last thing I'll add on this, we're recording this Thursday night. You probably get a better line on Saturday on everything Jack Della Maddalena because every parlay is going to have Islam in it. Every cross sport, NFL favorites, teasers, parlays, they're all going to have Makhachev thrown in just because he's the biggest name, I think, to a lot of casual fans. So that's the last point is it might be worth it to just wait before actually putting those bets in. Wouldn't shock me if we saw a better line. Moving on to the co-main event, we have another spot where a lighter weight class long-serving champion is attempting to move up. This time it's Weili Zhang moving up from 115 pounds to fight Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko been around forever. She made her pro debut when she was 15, well before Ronda Rousey even had an amateur fight. And Valentina Shevchenko is still going. So impressive longevity. Somehow still only a year older than Weili Zhang. This is the fight that we actually will have a full preview from Sean Zerillo, despite being on vacation. Hardest working man in MMA media that Sean Zerillo is. But John and I, you and I are both in agreement. We're both on the Shevchenko side. You also have a prop for that. Tell me what you see in here.
Yeah, I've kind of been back and forth on this fight, and I'm not like I don't have a super strong take on it, but I do think Shevchenko money line is a little too short. And the reason is, as we've seen, Weili Zhang when she fought Tatiana Suarez, she defended 14 of the takedowns, 14 of 15 takedowns coming her direction. But this is a whole different ballgame
Hmm.
fighting Shevchenko because she marries the striking and the grappling and the wrestling so well, and we've only seen that twice where I felt like Weili fought someone like that. Yang Xiaonan, who I don't even think is that good of a grappler, reversed her on the mat once and went
Yeah.
3 of 3 on takedowns, and in that split decision loss that in the rematch with Rose Namajunas, Namajunas was 2 for 2 on takedowns. So, and the only two women that she has fought where I thought kind of similar could marry the grappling and striking the way Shevchenko does was have a 100% takedown rate on her. It's different when you're fighting a fighter where Tatiana Suarez. That's all she can do. I mean, she's wrestling based,
Hmm.
fighter, and she wasn't going to be able to outstrike Weili Zhang that night. So that's my first thing. And obviously Weili coming up a weight class because Shevchenko, she's not she's not a small fighter for
No.
flyweight. So that makes a difference. And then my prop I like is kind of the power because we saw Yan Xiaonan drop Wei Li, and we've seen Wei Li, rocked and knocked out once by Rose with a head kick, a strike you could definitely see replicating in this fight from Shevchenko. So I just think Shevchenko has more paths to victory here. She's been in so many huge fights. She has the size advantage. She may even have like a grappling advantage that I think people are kind of understating. Um, that I think she's going to be better on the mat because we've seen Whaley reversed and taken down by fighters that are just not as good or as big as Valentina. So I'm on the Valentina money line, um, probably only for a half unit for me, but I will be playing a quarter unit on plus 800 KO or TKO as well.
Yeah, you kind of touched on what I'm seeing here. It's both women have had so much success due to their size and strength against their typical opponent, which is awesome. They're both huge for their respective divisions. But Shevchenko was like an awesome 135er. She was probably the second best bantamweight in the world when she was fighting in that division before the UFC even had flyweight. Could not get through Amanda Nunes, but gave her some close fights and has just toyed with everyone else. To your point on the power, she just dropped Manon Fiorot in her last fight, and that's an elite kickboxer. As you pointed out, Weili Zhang, not an elite kickboxer from a technical standpoint, but just bigger, stronger, more athletic than the women she fights at 115. That is not a skill that plays up when you're going up to a heavier weight class. I'm not so much worried about the speed or the age for Shevchenko. She's only a year-ish older, despite having been around for way longer. So, not as worried about that. I'm not extremely confident in it. I also really like your knockout prop, and I think I'll throw a sprinkle on that as well. I think Shevchenko's size just proves to be too much, and especially down the stretch. If we're both, shoving each other against the fence and in those tight clinches, it might be kind of a boring fight. The fighter who's carrying the larger opponent is going to have a much tougher time with that than the other way around. Football season is here, folks, and we've got some huge improvements and updates coming on the award-winning Action Network app, which we're very excited to discuss. But to get the most out of the app, you'll still need to be an Action Pro subscriber. It's only with Action Pro you'll get real-time pick alerts from me and the entire Action Network team of experts, including John. Plus, you can access pro projections powered by Sean Corder and our predictive analytics team, plus a ton of other benefits. And right now, Action Network podcast listeners can save $20 off the annual sub for Action Pro. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use code POD20. That's actionnetwork.com/pro and use code POD20 for $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. Now it's time for one of my favorite segments, usually, but a little bit of a quicker one this week. We each have one favorite underdog we want to discuss. John, you lead us off with yours, and then I'll give mine.
Yeah, I'm on Roman Kopylov. I think the best price I saw out there was plus 160 against Gregory Rodriguez. And in his last fight, I think we're getting a little bit of a better price on Roman here, based on losing to Paulo Costa in his last fight. Only attempting about 100, I think 104 significant strikes, and that was after a fight with Chris Curtis where he attempted 307. And I think he just gave way too much respect to Paulo Costa's power in that fight, and maybe he's going to do the same versus Gregory Rodriguez. But I think Kopylov's takedown defense is a lot better than people realize. And if this just becomes a striking affair with Rodriguez, I mean, I'm taking Kopylov's durability over Rodriguez all day. He dropped Cesar Almeida, who's an orthodox fighter, with a straight left. I think he could absolutely do that to Gregory Rodriguez here. And maybe Rodriguez does land a takedown early on in the fight, but if he tires out at all, we've seen Kopylov be pretty efficient and pretty strong in that third round. So I think he could carry his power later on in the fight. So I'm going Kopylov. It's probably going to be a KO if he wins, but I can also see if it just becomes a kickboxing match, him just ramping up the volume and
Mhm.
winning if no one gets finished here.
Yeah, definitely the better minute winner. I was looking at almost considering the decision only market for Hopilov. Do not know what that line is off the top of my head, but that's an interesting read. Also, to anyone watching that fight, if you didn't know and I asked you which of those two fighters is older, you would 100% get it wrong. Roman Kopylov looks like a teenage boy. Gregory Rodriguez looks like President Barack Obama and is somehow younger than Kopylov. It's the funniest thing. That's actually the one of the things that's keeping me from betting Kopylov because I thought he would have the youth on his side until I looked it up and it was very wrong. My only straight money line play because we had a fight cancellation right now. Chepe Mariscal, slight underdog, about plus 110 against Pat Sabatini. This one pains me. These are two of my guys. I love the whole Philly grappling style that Sabatini and Sean Brady also on this card bring. Chepe Mariscal is a judo black belt who started training judo as a little kid. Think he'll be able to use that to either get back to his feet or stay on his feet in the first place. And I trust his durability and his striking a little bit more than Sabatini's. Sabatini is pretty clean with his striking. He's good technically, but we've seen him get wobbled and dropped a few times. Chepe is not going to be the fighter who lets you off the hook if he does wobble you. So Chepe at plus money, perhaps Chepe knockout, which is another angle that you're on. Tell me what you saw or what I missed on that fight as you take the knockout rather than the money line price.
Yeah, I would say Chepe actually is probably my second favorite dog on the card. I put it in the Action app, Johnny L Football on the Action app if you want to follow me. But so I am playing both his money line and the knockout. But the knockout prop plus 460 is the best price I've seen. And part of it is like if Chepe is getting back to his feet and he's nullifying some of the takedowns, and this is playing out in space. Chepe is very aggressive. He's won 8 straight fights, 5-0 in the UFC, and I mean I don't trust Sabatini's durability at all. So if Chepe is getting the fight that he wants, he could easily land something that puts Sabatini away at any point. If I'm Chepe, I'm not probably using that strategy I used against Damon Jackson. I mean, I felt like Chepe wanted to go out there and prove something, but by like just kind of body locking Damon Jackson and saying, okay, my judo is better than your grappling. MMA math's not going to work here. But even Damon Jackson dropped um, Sabatini early on in the first round with a front kick, which I can't imagine. Damon Jackson, I wouldn't consider him putting down a lot of fighters in the striking realm. So if he could do it, I absolutely think that Chepe could do it. And I totally respect Sabatini's grappling. What he did to Jonathan Pierce was amazing. Like I couldn't believe how he was a full level above him. But I think Chepe is such a good scrambler. He gets back to his feet, and I think he can land something big and find a KO at any of the rounds here. So plus 460 is a tremendous value.
Yeah, I like that. I will say, when Chepe first got to the UFC, I pointed out his record isn't that great, but he fought so many tough dudes before he made it to the UFC. It's like a who's who of the current UFC division. Lost to Gregor Gillespie before getting to the UFC. Lost to Bryce Mitchell. Those are two of his losses. Had a no contest against Carl Deaton, also a former UFC fighter. Fought Larry and Douglas, who I believe has fought both PFL and Bellator. Fought Yusuf Zalal and beat him. Fought Joe Anderson Brito. Fought Steve Garcia. This is all pre-UFC. Lost to Sean Soriano and has a split decision win over a young man named Pat Sabatini way back in 2018. So this is actually a rematch between these two. Chepe, both the younger fighter and the fighter who won the previous bout, both of those play to the trends of being the stronger fighter. Obviously, it was a long time ago, so I'm not going to read too much into it, but Chepe has gotten so much better since then. So I think that helps both the knockout case and the straight up money line. Before we go back to John, a couple props I'm on. I like Tracy Cortez plus 3.5 rounds. My logic here, and I did the full preview for this one. Blanchfield has fought two straight 5 round fights and was scheduled for a third against Macy Barber, and it started slow in kind of all of them, especially the Rose Namajunas fight where she just took the first 2 rounds off before even trying. Switching back to a 3 round fight, I think is going to be a little bit difficult to adjust that pace. Cortez could probably win an early round here. And then I'm going to go Blanchfield live after round one. I've done this in previous fights in the past where we hit that middle, where we have the plus 3.5 on one fighter, live money line on the other, and hit both. Think that is extremely live here. This is also a rematch from way back in the regional circuit. It was like the third fight of Blanchfield's career when she was just 19. Split decision for Cortez. Probably should have gone Blanchfield's way. The first round was very close. The third round went to Blanchfield. So even back then, she was taking over late, slow starter. Think that's perfect. And then the other prop I'm taking kind of the opposite angle is Sean Brady minus 3.5 at minus 145. And then Michael Morales live if we get a better price on him. The problem with this one is I could get reverse middled and lose both bets. But I think if Brady wins, it's going to be fairly dominant. If he can get takedowns early, he's going to wear on Morales and really slow him down, if not finish him on the ground. If he can't, Michael Morales is extremely dangerous on the feet. Sean Brady, like Pat Sabatini, his occasional teammate, only losses via knockout to a guy who doesn't really get a lot of knockouts in Bilal Muhammad. So I worry about Brady's chin. Kind of everything else is elite or borderline elite. but Michael Morales, very dangerous striker. Again, I have the full preview for that one, so more in-depth technical thoughts. If you want to check that out, those will be up Saturday morning. John, I know you got a couple more props. Let me hear them.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, Brady, I have the prop on Brady sub plus 460, the best that I found out there. And it's kind of a similar thing to what I said about
Yeah.
Chepe is if Brady's getting the fight that he wants, I mean, this guy, I mean, Brady is as elite as it comes on the mat, right? So
Yeah.
if he gets him down, like there's no guarantee Morales can defend, sub after sub. Leon Edwards had never been submitted in his career or his UFC career until he fought Sean Brady. So whatever fight that plays out here, if Brady's able to get him down early in each round, that probably means a lot of control time. I don't. We've never seen Morales get up game. He's been taken down by lesser grapplers
Hmm.
and gotten up versus lesser grapplers, but this, Brady is a whole different level. So if Brady's getting him down all 3 rounds, like the subs are going to be there, and plus 460 for one of the best submission artists in the UFC, I'm taking that all day. I think it's a great value. And then another prop I'm on is Kyle Dawkins plus 195 KO over Gerald Mearshart. And this comes down to just GM3's durability. I just think it's completely shot. He's almost 38 years old. I was actually on Dawkins versus Michelle Pereira. I mean, I know Pereira is completely shot, but at least we've seen Dawkins. He won by knock, or I don't know if he won by knockout, but I know he did have knockdowns against his last regional fight before he came to the UFC. It was kind of built as a striker versus grappler, with Dawkins being the grappler. And kind of let his hands go and drop the guy. And then we see him finish Pereira within a couple minutes there. And again, Pereira shot, but I mean, Mearshart might be as well. And I think
Your
Dawkins
shot's
kind of
more
has that
shot.
confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has that confidence in his hands right now. Like once you're a 3 point shooter, you see the ball go through the hoop a couple times. You're shooting a few more threes, and Dawkins has never been submitted in his career, so I don't think Mearshart's going to find that Hail Mary submission, and I don't think Dawkins really should even take it to the ground. I just have very little respect for Mearshart's striking and his durability. I'm surprised. Looking back, I was even surprised he survived Brad Tavares, but I think Dawkins has actually proven to have a little more power than that.
Yeah.
So plus 195, I would actually take it down to like plus 150. I think this fight ends inside the distance, and maybe it's a club and sub, and that's the only reason you lose this bet. But I think Dawkins comes out on top here.
Yeah, I think the price on Dawkins finish, I'm looking right now just to see if the double chance is a little bit better. Yeah, Dawkins finished minus 120. I think with the difference we're getting now, it's probably worth the knockout. If it moves much, though, I would just say
Yeah,
take the finish. Maybe, to your point, maybe he does just lock in a choke or whatever instead of finishing with strikes because that's what he does. He's a grappler too. He's the Dark Knight for a reason. You got one more prop for us before we move on to best bets, correct?
yeah. I was 100% planning on taking Benoit Saint Denis by knockout as well. I think it's plus 160. But when I went back and watched that Renato Moicano win over Benoit Saint Denis, he could easily make a similar mistake in the first round, and
Mhm.
Dariush take him down. And if that happens, Dariush is going to win a round and tire him out a little bit. I don't know if he'll beat him up as badly. I mean, Saint Denis is a really tough guy, and so Dariush, I think he may have the upper hand on the mat and in takedowns. I respect Benoit Saint Denis. I love watching him fight, but he may be slightly overrated in his grappling, and he's not like this one punch KO type of guy, which I would be much more afraid of if I was backing Dariush. But I'm not backing Dariush. I just could see this going two directions. Yeah, maybe Benoit does put him away. I think that's the prevailing thought out there. Is that this will be an easy KO win for Benoit, and he could starch him with one punch 1 minute in. But we're covering that. It's Benoit Saint Denis by KO or Dariush by points, where we kind of saw the way Dariush beat Moicano with that control in the second and third round. So if you can find that out there, I'm seeing a minus 120. Sometimes it's labeled like an alternate double chance. So Benoit Saint Denis by KO TKO or Dariush by decision. That minus 120. I feel like those are the two most
Yeah.
likely paths to victories.
You mentioned that BSD is not a big one punch knockout guy. Everybody is a big one punch knockout guy when they are fighting this version of Beneil Dariush. His striking technically is great. He has almost 60% striking defense, doesn't get hit often, but man, it just takes one. And even in his last win against Moicano, he got dropped late in round one in a round he was dominating, then came back and won the fight with his grappling. Knocked out twice pretty badly before that. What I am doing with this one, I just finished the prep for this, the article for this. I think the best bet on this is Beneil Dariush live after round one. If he survives the first round, even if he wins the first round and you get a worse price, I don't see Saint-Denis doing much. Saint-Denis fades real hard as early as the second round in most of his fights. And that way, even if you're paying a worse price, you're paying a worse price to avoid that knockout. The other fun ones, if you want to go pre-fight here, I like Saint-Denis in round one at around plus 200 odds, and then Benny in round two at close to plus 500. Again, Saint-Denis is faded real hard in round two, or had the doctor stop it at the end of round two. That's where both of his stoppage losses were. I think if Benny's picking up takedowns, Saint-Denis is going to melt before we get to the end. So at that price, I like that one. Before we move to our best bets, if you are on Twitter, we have a great new feature. I'm sure you've seen it by now. If you see a bet from any of your favorite action experts or anyone on Twitter, you can now tag at Playbook and tell our bot to build you a bet slip at a book of your choice. It will build it out for you with a quick slip link that opens right up to your sports book. So keep an eye out for our new tool at Playbook on Twitter. And I will add, this is not in the read, but if you see any of our bets and want to tag that, it will find the best line for you. Hopefully that's our partner at DraftKings that has the best line at the time, but those lines move, especially on fight night. So use Playbook. It'll find the best lines. Don't have to worry about what we quoted from a podcast 2 days before you're making the bet. All right, we have our best bets, and then we'll touch on the few fights we didn't get to. John, you're going to the Bo Nickel Rodolfo Vieira fight. Think you're expecting this to look a lot like Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig, which was one of the most anticipated and biggest disappointments I remember in recent history. Is that what you're seeing here with Bo Nickel taking on another dangerous submission grappler?
Yeah, just a little history here. The last two times I've joined you on the Action Podcast have been the last two times Bo Nickel's fought. Um, we were on Bo Nickel plus 300. We got a lot of pushback in the comments. I
RDR
remember.
plus 300, you mean?
Oh, what did I say?
You said Bo Nickel plus
Oh
300.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
never been,
Sorry.
yeah, RDR.
Yeah. He's always RDR. Sorry, RDR plus 300 against Bo Nickel in that fight. In the previous fight when he fought Paul Craig, my angle was Bo Nickel by decision at plus 800, and I really wanted to, and I actually wrote this article up today, this preview. I really wanted to take Vieira money line as one of my favorite
Yeah.
dogs. I mean, Bo Nickel still has a ton to prove that he can even beat someone UFC caliber. And that's kind of my angle here is that while he's saying these things where he had a mental reset and he needs to prioritize damage over control, this probably isn't the fight to do it because you're fighting an elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist on the mat. And I think he will actually be able to get the air down rather easily, which will also contribute to like, oh, well, this is working for me because Vieira, while I'm not going to say he's a good striker by any stretch, he did take one round off of Chris Curtis in
Yeah.
the stand-up. There's no chance Bo Nichols taking a round off Chris Curtis standing in the striking part, in my opinion, at this stage of his career. So I think if he tries to kind of use that Paul Craig style where come out, maybe they will come out a little slow, which would be great for Vieira's cardio and stamina. But if they come out and just have this kickboxing match, I think Vieira will kind of land more on volume and use his jab pretty well. And then Bo Nichols is going to say, well, let me see if I can take him down. He will. I think he'll be successful with it. A little lay and pray on there. And I think this fight, I don't think either guy's submitting the other person. I don't think either guy has the power to knock out the other fighter. So my angle here is over 2.5 rounds at minus 150. I'm gonna erase that back half of the third round, just in case Vieira's cardio. We've seen it fail him at times before, but Bo Nichols not Fluffy Hernandez. I don't think he's going to be Matt returning and repeating. I mean, this guy has the best cardio in the entire sport, and I think Vieira has improved in MMA since he was submitted by Hernandez. I don't think Bo Nichols can do the same. I don't think Vieira can submit Bo Nichols, so I'm going to go over 2.5 rounds. The best price I see right now is minus 150.
100% agree with you on that. The only pushback I'll give you is I don't think Bo Nickel attempts a takedown. I think Bo Nickel has done the wrestler thing of falling in love with his hands because he learned a little bit of striking and he's a good natural athlete. I mean, we saw him get knocked down by RDR trying to exchange on the feet with him. We saw him just have the world's most boring striking match against Paul Craig. You could have scored that for Craig watching that one back recently. I don't think anyone would have been mad with that scorecard going to Paul Craig either. So like it was closer than people remember. It was as bad as people remember, but it was closer than people remember. My best bet, definitely more of a final bet because this one's moved on me a little bit. Mateus Camillo, the Jaguar, taking on Slava Claus, around minus 170. I got slightly better price earlier in the week as I detailed in my luck ratings. If you can grapple at all, you're going to beat Slava Claus. And Mateus Camillo got two takedowns and nearly had a submission on Gabe Green before really selling out for said submission, not finishing it, and then giving up his back and getting submitted in his UFC debut. He won't make that mistake against Slava Claus. He will prioritize position and control, I'm sure. But even if he does make the mistake of aggressively looking for a submission, he will probably get it on Slava Claus because that's what everyone does to him when they get him to the ground. Got submitted in less than a minute by Terrence McKinney in his last fight. Probably a win or go home fight, I think, for Slava Claus, who's now 33 and has lost three of his last four, with the win coming from split decision. So would continue to bet that up to like close to probably minus 200. Think you can still get 170. Got a couple minutes left here, John. Few fights we didn't get to. The first of those, Malcolm Wellmaker versus Ethan Ewing. This fight came together like this evening, shortly before we began recording. Only thing I have to say on it, we don't have lines yet. Ethan Ewing 5 days ago knocked out Billy Brand. Cody Haddon, who was supposed to fight Malcolm Wellmaker, knocked out Billy Brand on the Contender Series to get to the UFC. So weird bit of synergy there. Don't think it means anything. Don't think it's great that he's fighting twice in a week. You're probably either way too small for the division or have to kill yourself to cut weight. Wellmaker's going to be like a minus 700 favorite, but is priced like he's minus 150, which makes him an elite priced in DFS like he's minus 150. So play him in all your DFS lineups. That's my only thought there. John, you got anything?
No, I actually recently watched that Billy Brand Haddon fight, and I don't think Brand actually looked terrible
No.
in his striking there. So this guy's probably decent, but I'm gonna predict the finishing maneuver of Wellmaker, that right hook. It's been putting down everybody. It's we're probably seeing the fourth consecutive time it's happening here.
Yep, I had a full preview for that where I talked about that right hook specifically, what makes it so great, and none of you will ever get to read it because the fight got canceled. Angela Hill versus Fatima Klein. Anything on that, John? Pretty wide line here, which has kept me away from taking any shots.
Yeah, I actually I previewed this fight in my article, and well, I'm on Klein by decision. I don't like my laying minus 165. But I mean, really, that is the best angle here. I think she's a little bit faster. These girls actually are pretty similar. They're in their fighting style. I think Klein is a better grappler. She's going to be faster. She's 15 years younger, I believe. Angela
Yeah,
Hill turns
that's
40,
the key.
41 here in about a couple months. So you're getting, a Klein on the ascent, and Angela Hill, you're going to be paying a tax on her opponent moving forward, given that she is at the advanced age she is right now. So minus 165, I believe. Klein by decision is the best price I saw. That's the angle I'm going with there.
I have wanted to fade Angela Hill due to age for like 3 years now, and she keeps looking exactly the same every fight. But it will happen at some point. Like she's gonna come out and look old someday. Probably not in front of her hometown crowd in New York. I think she's New York original too, but one of these days it's gonna happen. And then last one, I am gonna make people go and click your article and rather hear from you. But that is the only fight we didn't get to is Leon Edward versus Carlos Prates. John also will have a preview of that up on the site. Check that out Saturday morning. And that is going to do it for our UFC betting preview. As mentioned many times, you can find more UFC betting content on actionnetwork.com. Both John and I taking over most of the spots, although we still will have Zerillo's mega preview for every fight, projections for money lines and props, and he will be covering a few select fights as well. And remember, if you'd like to instantly tail some of the bets we discussed on today's show, look for the quick sit links in the podcast and video description, or visit actionnetwork.com/bet now, or simply tag Playbook on Twitter. Thanks, everyone. Good luck.